All right, welcome to lesson 7.4. Today's lesson is all about probability. Okay, so you probably have a sense of what probability is. You probably heard that word before. What we say is probability is a measure of how likely an event is to occur. What the chances are or what the odds are is another way of saying kind of the same thing. When we talk about probabilities, we can express them a number of ways. They can be expressed as fractions, ratios, or percents. So some examples of this, some things you'd see in sort of everyday life. For example, if you check the weather forecast, you might look out the window and wonder what's happening and say, well, precipitation looks like there's an 80% chance of precipitation today. What that means is 80%, that's the same thing as 4 over 5. So 80% chance that when you walk out the door at some point you're going to get rained on, or 4 out of every 5 times on a day like today you would experience some rain. Another place you might see probabilities are things like odds of winning prizes. So if you're curious to win the Lotto 649, you have a 1 in 13,983,816 chance, which means if you were to expect to win the lottery, you'd have to play nearly 14 million times before you would have a reasonable chance of expecting to hit the jackpot. Okay, so to calculate probabilities, what we say is we say that the probability of an event is the number of favorable events divided by the total number of events. Now, when we say favorable, we don't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. We mean the number of times that event that we're talking about might happen. So, for example, being rained on might not sound very favorable, but it's the number of times you're being rained on divided by the total number of times you go out. Okay, so our example here, Cece and Sam are playing chess. Cece puts all of her chess pieces in a bag, including a king, a queen, 2 bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, and 8 pawns. And then she pulls one chess piece out of the bag at random. What is the probability that that will be a bishop? Okay, so our formula is the number of favorable events divided by the total number of events. Okay, so if I look back at my question here, we're asking what is the probability that it will be a bishop? If I look back at the question, there are 2 bishops in that bag. So the top part of my equation here is going to be 2. There are 2 favorable possible events. If I want to find the total number of events, then I'm going to have to go back and look at all of these possibilities here. All of these possibilities could actually happen. So I've got 1 king plus 1 queen plus 2 bishops plus 2 knights plus 2 rooks plus 8 pawns. And that adds up to a total of 16. So I have a 2 in 16 chance of pulling the bishop out of the bag. Okay, because this is a fraction, one thing we always want to do, this is not a final answer, one thing we always want to do is we want to reduce it to smallest terms, so I can divide my top and bottom by 2, and I end up with 1 out of 8. So one way to express this as a fraction is 1 over 8. If instead you wanted to, what is our fraction? If instead you wanted to talk about a ratio, you might remember that a ratio can be expressed, you can take the numbers directly from the fraction, and we just express it like this. It's a 1 to 8 ratio. Which would be also acceptable. And the last thing we have to find is a percentage. And remember that to find a percentage, all we do is we just do this operation right here. This is 1 over 8, which is the same as 1 divided by 8. So we can do it long form or using a calculator. 1 divided by 8 gives me 0.125, which is a decimal. I need to multiply that by 100 to make a percentage, and so I get 12.5%. Okay, so when we have events that are guaranteed to occur, something that is absolutely certain, something that must happen, we call it a certain event. And the probability of a certain event is 100%. If you go back to this last example here, if the question asks, what is the probability that CC pulls a chess piece out of the bag? Well, that's basically 100%. Since there's only chess pieces in the bag, guaranteed whatever she pulls out will be a chess piece. When an event is guaranteed not to occur, then we call it an impossible event. And the probability of that happening is 0%. So if you look back at the last question, and if the question asks what is the probability that CC pulls an orangutan out of the bag, that would be not just incredibly unlikely, that would be impossible. There are no orangutans in the bag. That's just not going to happen. Okay, that's it for lesson 7.4.